Hello, and welcome to the Indie Plus exhibition game TLDW version. We're here with...
Rich?
Jen?
Catherine?
And Mark.
And I'm Brendan. We just finished a game of Inspectres, run by Jen, and now we're going to do a 5-minute condensed discussion. First, we'll talk about our favorite highlights of the game we just played. Then we'll talk about what you should know about the game, anything that you should be definitively aware of before diving in. And finally, why you should play, the one stunning reason that you should play this game. So, without further ado, highlights. Why don't you go ahead first, Rich?
Highlight for me would probably be the plot, the fact that we had a holiday-themed game and we had the ghost of a guy who pretended to be Santa. It was set up brilliantly by Jen with the clues, but we all kind of worked towards it, which is one of the things I love about Inspectres.
Yeah, it developed organically and it was wonderful. Yeah, I loved it. Jen?
It was the bunnies. Oh my gosh, it was like a throwaway thing in the beginning, and it just kept coming back and being funny. So.
Bunnies in every RPG from now on.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine, what's your highlight?
I really liked the slapstick outside the house, how everything just came together with one person being incompetent, falling off the house, another one landing on him, and then his ex-wife is there and he looks up at her, and there were bunnies involved in that too. It was just a really great bit of physical comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also something you don't see that often, physical comedy. Yeah. Mark, what's yours?
So I think Catherine did a really good job of playing, I don't know, the straight woman, sort of. Like, I'm a kind of normal person and you all are a bunch of wackos. And that I thought that was really interesting. The system set that up well so that somebody could take on that role and it would be funny.
Yeah, I hear that because we were all a little crazy, but Marcy was our chaperone.
Yeah.
And I think, actually, my favorite moment was maybe the confessional that Eric had, because that was the moment that it was exactly like a TV show, and I saw that instant happening on The Office or Parks and Recreation, where Eric looks in the camera and he says, "I hate that woman." And I'm like, that is perfect. That is just so perfect that we had that moment. Great, so now let's talk about what you should know. This is what we think you should know before you get into this game. So I'll go ahead and start, and we'll go in reverse order. So I think that what you should know about Inspectres is that it's probably going to require a fair amount of thinking on the fly and that sort of GM-ish stance as you play. The fact that when you get that 5 or a 6, you, the player, get to say what happens, and it should be more, hopefully, like, it gets really interesting when it's more than just, and I did the thing. Like, when you actually add details is when I think that it blooms and is a beautiful flower. So be prepared to bring that level of game here. Mark, what do you think people should know?
I think along those lines, like the system doesn't have a lot of ways to set up conflicts, so it really falls to the GM to set those up, right? And for the players to then facilitate them. So I think you need to take some time. This is like an old school story game, right? Like this is from back in the day, right? And so like it's very much like you've got to frame scenes as the GM that put players in the conflict, and then players have to play along with that conflict. So.
Yeah, totally. Catherine, what do you think people should know?
I know we didn't really get into any of the stress mechanics or anything, but I think people should know just kind of how the basics work, and that it's really, really broad categories, and that you kind of have to think about it a lot of the time about what specifically how you're trying to achieve something, not just what you're trying to achieve.
Right, that's a good point. Jen?
My thing that I feel like people should know is there is really not any character improvement. There's no like leveling or anything. There's a thing with the stress mechanic. You can get these things called cool dice, which can help you regain when you lose points off your stats. But it's not Apocalypse World. There's no extra boxes you get to tick or anything like that. So.
Mm-hmm. You are not going to level up. And Rich, what do you think people should know?
Well, it didn't happen in this game, which is awesome, and I wouldn't expect it would. But if you have players who are not necessarily very giving or good at listening skills, one of the things that can happen is that as each person gets a success that adds to the total kind of the clue dice or the franchise dice to solve the mission. They say a bit about the mystery. And if you have one person who's just dead set that it's going to be the Gila monster, and other people are like, I'm really not digging that, and then you can actually find the clues that go two different ways. So people need to work together, or at least listen to what other people are saying and build on that.
Incorporate. Yeah, that makes sense. Great. So now we're going to talk about why you should play Inspectres. The key shining reason you would say to somebody to convince them this is a great game and you should play it. So I'm going to start in the middle. Catherine.
I think it's a really good collaborative game, that it works well with a lot of people. I could see this supporting even more than 4 people, and it really manages everyone getting their bit of screen time as well.
Mark, what's yours?
Comedy is actually really hard, and I think this game facilitates it by giving you lots of reasons to fail in interesting ways.
And Jen?
I love GMing this game because, like, I prepared a little bit of notes of things that I wanted to include, but I love running it and just like being like, here, you guys have this, and you run with it, and the players do run with it, and you make up the craziest stuff, way better than I could come up with, and it's just super fun. I love playing it. I love running it. So.
For me, I'm going to focus on one particular mechanic, which is actually the confessional. And I think the confessional is a mechanic that I would love to see in more games because it does something huge. It lets me say, first of all, something happens down the line, but it also lets me say exactly what's on my character's mind at that moment to you, and that's great. That's something that's hard to do in a lot of other games, and there's a reason why the confessionals show up in shows like Parks and Recreation and The Office when it doesn't actually make sense. So I really love that that's here, and I think that alone is really, really a reason to play the game. And Rich, what would you tell people?
I would tell people, and Jen's a little different from me, this is a game that is true, for me, zero prep as a GM. Like, you can't, it actively fights against the GM prep. Like, oh, this is a low prep game, but I really do kind of prep. But you can't. There's only so much you can prep because the next scene is really up to the success or failure of the actions of the player. So it's kind of neat that way. But Jen
totally
found a way to prep, so she's smarter than me.
Jen has defeated your point. And that's it. That's great. So the game, again, was Inspectres. It was written by Jared Sorensen, and I believe we said it was available on DriveThruRPG primarily right now. If you liked this video, please subscribe to Indie Plus by clicking the button, which is up there. Is that the wrong? That's a good one. Okay, I got it. It's up there. Please subscribe. We do tons of cool videos, more exhibition games, more TLDWs, and other great content, including Dr. Tom the Frog. So thank you very much for watching, and have a good night.